Good afternoon, everyone. I am here today to bring you the 13th place Golden Cooler list from the most recent NA LCQs. I am excited to report that this deck is phenomenal, and by no means is this result, top 13, the limit of this deck. I genuinely believe I could have won the entire tournament if, I had played a little bit better, saw a couple different cards. Overall, this deck performed amazingly over the weekend, and those of you who do follow us on the MPU, I'm sure you've seen many games of me on stream. Yeah, this deck isn't going anywhere, guys, and as long as they don't hit black, you'll continue to see me hopefully put up results with this deck. Now, let's get on to a quick overview of the leader. We have the front side, Cooler. He has an auto when he attacks, you draw one. Activate main once per turn. You discard one black card from your hand to top 5 for any Prison Planet card. Keep in mind that is any black card from your hand. Could be an extra card, could be a battle card that's not Prison Planet. And although we want to do our best to pitch Prison Planets, because the effects are very important to have Prison Planet cards, just know that that's something cheeky you could do, especially if you have a dead hand and you just need to get moving to find better cards. So always a way out of your opening hand. And secondly, the awakening condition. If you are at 2 energy and this Fu is in play, or you are at 4 life, you can awaken, untap 1, draw 1. Now on the backside, this is where this deck gets crazy. So first we have an auto. Once per turn, when you play a Prison Planet card on your opponent's turn, you draw 1. And we'll get into how that happens with the Unison, and another fun interaction that I actually learned over the weekend I didn't even consider. And, I mean, first of all, crazy, drawing on your opponent's turn, right? Second, we have Activate Main once per turn. You send 2 Prison Planet cards from your drop to your warp to free play a 3-cost Prison Planet card from your hand. We'll get to those targets in a little bit. And then the last Activate Main is discard 1 black card from your hand. I think it's a Prison Planet. Yes, you have to discard 1 Prison Planet card from your hand specifically, and then you draw 2. So there you go. Free play on the bleeder. We've got Unison drawing you cards on your opponent's turn. And pitch 1, draw 2 in a black deck is incredible because we set up our drop area, we filter through our deck even further. It's phenomenal, phenomenal. Anyway, let's get on with the actual deck list. So first we have 8 copies of the 1-drop Trunks. Now, the Trunks says either draw a card or top 5 for a Prison Planet card 4 or less. Doesn't really matter which one you find, you want to open with one of these ideally. And the second effect, they both say the exact same thing. Let me read it out to you guys real quick. So, when this card is sent from your drop to its owner's warp by the skills of a Prison Planet card in any of your areas, remove this card in your warp from the game. Then you may send 1 Prison Planet card from your drop to the warp. If you do, choose one of your cards, any card, and it gains 5k power for the turn, and you can't activate skills on any of the Trunks future cards for the turn. So let me explain that a little bit, because that was a mouthful. The 1-drop Trunks, all of your, for example, your leader's backside, it says warp 2 Prison Planet cards, play a 3-drop, right? So if you choose Trunks as your target, then when the Trunks is warped, he will immediately remove himself from game, and that's mandatory. Even if you don't resolve the rest of the auto, the Trunks will immediately remove himself. Then you may choose to warp a different Prison Planet card, give any of your cards on your board 5k. So that's Leader, Unison, some other battle card on the board. It is a phenomenal effect and very important, mostly on defense to get this off, because you can potentially triple bean your leader to be a base 30k on your opponent's turn, which is ridiculous, obviously. But But you can sometimes do this on offense if you feel like you want the extra push. And again, this goes on any card in your on your board. Any battle card, any leader unison. Doesn't specify Prison Planet. So let's say you have Beyond All Limits Overrealm 30k. You can give it 5k, or you can Patara give it 5k, right? Any of those cards can gain the power from this card. Very important to remember that. It's not just your Prison Planets. Moving on to the next set, we have our 3-drop Prison Planet cards. We're playing 4 of the Cooler and 4 of the Hatchak. We're not playing the other 3-drop, which is the Bojack, I believe. That card it does nothing, so there's no reason to play it. But both of these are very, very critical to the deck. The Cooler, he has an auto once per turn. When this card gains power by the skills of a Prison Planet card, you may then search up to top 3 cards of your deck for a Prison Planet card and add it to your hand. So your leader effect, when you free play the 3-drops, you give that card 5k with the leader effect immediately, and then the auto will go pending right away. This is important because if it gets counterplayed by, say, red Gohan, or the black counterplay where it kills the card in the auto step, you will still get your auto to top 3. And then, same thing for the Hatch. When it gains power by the skills of a Prison Planet card, you may choose a battle card on your opponent's side of the field, 4 or less, and warp it. This is amazing free board control, and there's plenty of decks that can't get around this easily, or they have to work extra hard to deal with this as a threat, and then they walk into your other removal pieces or aggro. Again, these are both incredible cards, and we need a high number of them because ideally you want to be playing one of these every turn. They both have a second effect, activate main for 1 energy. Let me read it because I haven't actually done this very often. So if your leader is a Prison Planet card and you have 2 or more energy, you can just play them for 1. Again, it's very rare that you can or you want to do this, but there are some situations where you can potentially free play the Hatch, pay 1 to play the Cooler, and we have our Cumber Z battle card that can give power to one of your Prison Planet cards later, and so that we can plus off of all of our effects constantly. But again, rare to use the activate main to play these out. Try and play them for free if you can. Right. Next, we'll go on to the 4-drops. And we are running 4 copies of the Barrier King Cold, 4 copies of the SS4 Goku, and 4 copies of the Cooler. Now, the reason we are playing it with these ratios is the King Cold is your ideal play target when you are playing it off of the Unison ability. The biggest reason is it has Barrier. It does nothing else on play. All of the skills are in the activate main text, but because it has Barrier, your opponent can't get rid of it immediately. And in this deck, your defense is this card, counterplays, and free negates. So if you can't resolve a block, either by the card getting killed on play or maybe yellow rests it, regardless, if this doesn't get a blocker off, your Unison's likely going to die, and now you're on the back foot. So against decks where you know they have the removal, they have a way to get around this blocker, you must play the King Cold. We can talk about some play lines a little bit later, but anyway, this is important. You want this card to appear turn 2 when your opponent swings to get an extra block off. The Goku. This is essentially a dual attack or a dual block. He has an auto limit 1. When this at the end of a battle where this card was in the battle, it restands. So again, you can swing with this if you play it on your own turn, and at the end of the battle it'll restand. You can swing again, so a nice little dual attacker. Or you can block with it if you played it with the unison effect to then restand itself and block again. Dual blockers are very nice. Dual attackers are even nicer. And 9 times out of 10, we're going to play this for the aggro because the activate main has an additional effect that's very important. So the activate main, limit 1 for 1 black. You may play this card, send 2 cards from your warp back to your drop, and then choose one of your opponent's battle cards and warp it. So this is removal, drop fix, and a dual attacker on offense. That's quite a bit of value. And additionally, as a sneak peek, we are playing the Vegito Xeno package. So this is a Goku Xeno 20k, which fits with the counterplay. It fits with the 4-drop Goku Vegeta promo. Anyway, it's just another reason to play this card. And last, we have the Cooler, which is probably the coolest, no pun intended, the coolest card of the 4-drops. Because it does way too much, especially on the opponent's turn when you play it with the unison effect. And additionally, a big part of this is it's a 25k. So we'll go ahead and read off the effects real quick. It says, auto, when this card is played, place up to 2 of your black battle cards from your warp back to the drop. Then choose one of your black cards and it gains 5k for the turn. So this is one of the ways you can either bean your leader on defense, or you can choose one of your 3 drops and give it 5k on defense or offense if you play it for 1. And there you go. We're benefiting from the power gains all across the board. Secondly, it has an activate main for 1 black. If your leader is black and you have 3 or more energy, choose one of your opponent's battle cards, send it to the warp, and play this card from your hand. So, again, this is removal. It's a 25k, and it has drop fix. It beans a card. This card is nuts. The only downside to this card is it does not have protection. And that's, again, why we need the King Cold. The King Cold is... Oop, there we go. King Cold is very important to make sure we can protect our unison against decks that can get rid of our blockers turn 2. So, just to reiterate real quick, I'm going to go ahead and specify all of the 4-drops. They all have the similar costs. So activate main for 1 black, and if you are at 3 energy, you can play these guys. Again, we want to be saving the King Cold primarily for defense, so you can play it with blocker and guaranteed block, or force your opponent to waste heavy resources to clear it. And then the Cooler is your best second option to play off of the unison ability, because it's a 25k, so it gets around Koitsukai, and it's a 25k, so it gets around Gohan counterplay red. It'll still survive. They have to hit it with an extra minus effect. And it beans with its own effect. So between Cooler and the 1-drop Trunkses, this is 10k total, or 2 instances of 5k that we can give to 2 different cards, or double bean your leader. This card is very powerful when used in the right moment on defense. And then on offense, you can always pay 1, play it, warp a card, send 2 back to the drop, and give itself 5k if you want, and it's a 30k beater for 1. I mean, again, incredible. And then the Goku, as we've discussed, primarily for offense as a dual attacker and removal, and occasionally you'll want to play it for defense for a dual blocker if you think you can gain value from that. Alright. Moving on, we are playing 3 copies of the 8-drop Golden Cooler in the main. This card is insane. It is expensive for 3 energy, but because of how much free play we can generate in this deck, honestly, tapping out for this turn 3 is a completely viable play, and sometimes the best play. Forcing your opponent into a floodgate, getting rid of a card ignoring barrier, threatening 30k double strike plus 3 to 4 extra swings with all of your free play. Again, this doesn't feel bad at all to tap out for it if you've managed to protect your Unison. So we'll go ahead and read its effects real quick. So it's a 30k double striker, 8 energy. And as an activate main, limit 1 for 3. If your leader is black, you place 2 black battle cards from your warp back to your drop, and you play this card from your hand. And big note, this doesn't specify how much energy, like if your opponent has energy, you can play this for 3. So if you're going second and you have the energy marker, you could technically play this turn 2, tapping out for it. But 9 times out of 10, you'd rather play your Unison, Awaken, do that kind of stuff. But just so you guys know, that's an option. Second, the auto. When this card is played, choose one of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, send it to the warp. Then, until the end of your opponent's turn, your opponent can't attack with cards other than their leader card, unless they send 1 card from their hand to the warp each time. This is a very obnoxious floodgate. And again, it hits everything except leaders. So, slamming this down turn 3 after you've kicked their teeth in turn 2, it feels so dirty where you pressure your opponent super hard, and then the following turn you get rid of their board or their defense and put a hefty floodgate on them. Most decks are going to maybe swing leader, maybe swing one other card if they can get a draw off of it, if they think they're going to get value, and then pass. So this by itself, in the right situations, will buy you another turn. And additionally, if you are expecting a wide board where your opponent's going to swing a lot of single attackers, this protects you so much, and it can catch people overextending a lot, where they think, like, I have this opening, I have to take it, and they're just going minus in hand every time they swing. So I think 3 is the right number for the deck. I do side a 4th, but this card is incredible, and in all honesty, if you see it turn 3, it's great. Just slam it. And the last of our Prison Planet package, we are playing 4 copies of the new Super Combo, primarily because it is a Prison Planet, so it's searchable off of all of your effects. It does have the added benefit of you can use this at any life total as long as you have 2 Z energy. However, I will state that this deck is pretty Z energy hungry and doesn't generate it naturally. So sometimes getting the super combo off can feel difficult. That is one pain point of the deck I'd like to point out, but I still think this is the right super combo for the deck. Another added benefit is it's a Cumber card, so if you are playing the Cumber 7-drop, you can tuck this underneath the 7-drop for the effect to play it. Alright, that is the main core package. Let's move on to the fun stuff. So, we are playing 4 copies of the Duo, 4 copies of the Counterplay, 3 copies of Beyond All Limits, 2 copies of the Patara, and 1 copy of, well, because you can only have one, SS3 Thwarting. Now, this Duo is broken. This is exactly what the deck needed to get that extra edge, because it combos from your warp for free and draws one on play. So this is a free play 25k that generates a Z energy. That's very, very important because, like I mentioned, our super combo is the 2Z. We want Z energy for our Z battle cards, which we'll go into later. And this offers some early aggression. Additionally, if you sequence your turns correctly, you should always have 4 in the drop as soon as you awaken before you do your leader's backside pitch draw 2. So before you do this, you'll have 4 in the drop, you can overwhelm this, and then we go off on a huge chain up to 6 swings on turn 2. This card is crazy. Obviously, the black counterplay, we all know what this does. Everyone's hoping this gets hit in some capacity except me. I think this card's awesome. But because we play a Unison as part of our Awakening package, that means counterplay is live turn 2 onwards. And again, we know how obnoxious it is to work around this card. And again, it's it's a duo. It's free play Overwhelm if you need it. Great value. 3 Beyond All Limits, because this will pick up everything except our 1-drops and super combos. So if at any point you are missing a Prison Planet card to pitch for leader effect or to warp for your skills on the Superfu, you can always just grab it back. You can grab back any of your Vegito pieces if you burst the thwarting or both of your Pataras. It's just a super versatile card. I will admit, I think 3 might be a bit on the high end. I've been bouncing around between 2 and 3, but this card is way too valuable to not include at least at a 2 of. Then, of course, Patara. We're only playing 2 because the deck, like I mentioned, is energy hungry, Z hungry after turn 2. Because we'd prefer to be playing the 8-drop Golden Cooler rather than this guy. But it's still an incredibly powerful option, and we have so many ways of getting this out that it's like, why not? Usually 1 or 2 of these copies get sided out pretty easily, especially against green. You just don't play this card because they're just going to Solidarity pop it, and you're going to cry. So 2 copies, I think it's fine. Again, I think during the tournament I resolved it maybe once. So, not the most oppressive card in this deck, but it's still very powerful when you do get it off. And in the right matchups, some decks can't even deal with it. So, always worth at least slotting 1 in, I think. And maybe this could even go all the way to the side if you're feeling like this card doesn't get played enough. And last, in the Vegito package, the SS3 Thwarting. I mean, this card is just nuts. For 1 energy, it's a 25 double strike and removes a card on the board. This is very, very good into decks that want to be at around 3 life and are either hiding behind Dormant or Token Negate or something like that, right? Because you can threaten double strike, remove the blocker if they do Token Negate, or if they already have a blocker on board, get rid of that. Obviously, we play enough Gokus and Vegetas to get the fusion off very easily. And again, that's another reason why we play 4 copies of that Goku that I showed earlier, the Prison Planet Goku, because it's a target. It is a 20k Goku Xeno, so you can fuse with either of these cards. And same thing with the Patara, of course. If you have Overrealm plus Goku, or Counterplay plus Goku, or Counterplay plus Duo Overrealm, you've got so many ways to get both of these cards off. And that is the Vegito Xeno package. Alright, and the last 2 battle cards in the deck is Cumber Secret Rare. I feel like this is fairly obvious because we are playing heavy in the Vegito Xeno package. There's a potential to burst, so why not just get it out of the way and make sure we can never brick by accident by bursting our Secret Rare. Also, like I mentioned earlier, your leader's front side, you can pitch any black card to top 5. So in the games where you open with this, which genuinely you don't want to, if you open with it, you can just get rid of it immediately top 5 and get yourself in a better hand situation. And then a 1 of Gohan, negate. So we rarely use this for the removal because we have plenty of removal in the main deck. But sometimes it's nice to just have this as an insurance policy, right? So we do play a lot of extra card negates, but this one as a negate from your drop or warp means it gets around counters, it gets around decks that are going to snipe it out of your hand, your negates. Just in general, this adds that extra tiny bit of safety net. We don't have a lot of room in this deck for more than 1. So, but honestly, I think 1 is fine. We have more than enough defense to get us through most decks. So think one of these is just fine. Alright, moving on to the extra card package. We're playing 3 Power Burst, 3 Petrification, 2 Support of the Dark Empire, and 1 Super Kamehameha. Now, the reason we have this lineup is, well, we'll go through each card one at a time. Power Burst. It might feel counterintuitive because your 1-drops get warped when you use their effects, when you warp them for the Prison Planet skill. But most of the time, you might have 2 or 3 trunks in the drop/warp, and Power Burst is fairly live to pick one of those back up. Additionally, we move cards around from our drop and warp pretty consistently, so if you're just careful about when you activate this, you can completely shut down somebody's turn. For example, turn 2, if you pass with 5 cards in the drop, then when your opponent swings, you can immediately Sparking Power Burst, and then also trigger your Unison auto to free play a blocker. So now your Unison goes up to 3 markers, you've stopped 1 swing, you're stopping another swing with a blocker, and most decks, at that point, they won't be able to do enough to get around your defensive wall. And additionally, Sparking puts you back down to 5 life, so support is live if you need to swing further. I have actually considered swapping 1 pet for 1 support, because Petrification really only comes up once per game. And the reason why we put it at 3 is because it's important in the matchups where you need it, right? So, for example, against green, when they Solidarity you, and you want to keep your blocker alive, this is necessary to have. But I think I might swap this ratio around, so main deck 3 supports, main deck 2 Petrifications, and put 1 in the side. Anyway, Petrification, obviously we know this card's broken. It's the best negate, single target negate in the game, but it's not a floodgate. So it's also -2 in hand and 1 energy, so in this deck especially it's rather expensive. So that's why, again, I'm thinking we can take this down to 2 in the main. But you always include it in every black deck. It's really strong. We already went over the Support of the Dark Empire. And last, the 1 of Super Kamehameha, just to protect yourself against pesky floodgates. We do side a second copy for decks that we are expecting more battle card negates, floodgates. So if we think we're playing a red deck that's going to topo us, or if we're playing Zamasu and there's a high chance they're going to Oceanus you, you just wait for either of those decks to leave 2 up, and you're like, I'm ready. I'm locked in. I'm going to continue swinging on this turn. And that is the main deck. It is a 60 card list. Very thick, I know, but 60 protects us against mill, and there's just way too many cards that I wanted to include in this deck, so far it hasn't burned me yet. Alright, let's go quickly over the Z deck. So first we have 4 copies of the Fu Z Unison. This card is your bread and butter. It's how your deck demolishes your opponent. You free play on your opponent's turn. You have black counterplay live. It's an extra swing with a Unison. Overall, it's very strong. It also does quite a bit, so outside of just free playing. So let's start with the first permanent. This card gains Prison Planet in all areas, and that's important for the leader's auto. Once per turn, if it's your opponent's turn, when your Prison Planet card is played, draw 1 card. So if you happen to play this card on your opponent's turn, which we can with the Cumber, you can draw 1 card. Secondly, auto, when this card is played, look at top 5 for a Prison Planet card, add it to your deck, and then if you added a card, you discard 1. So, when you play this card for your Awakening, you top 5, grab a card, pitch something you don't need, and it's pitch anything. And then if it dies and you have Cumber, And the Cumber's auto allows you to play a new unison for free. Your leader auto triggers, you draw one card, and then this auto triggers again, you top 5, grab one, discard one. So you are filtering heavily in this deck. You will always, hopefully always, find the pieces you need, find your super combos. It's rare that you'll burst more than one super combo a game, because you can find them. Secondly, the +1. Auto, if your leader is a Prison Planet card, and you send 2 Prison Planet cards from your drop to their owner's warp, when your opponent attacks, play 1 Prison Planet card with an energy cost of 4 from your hand, and it gains blocker for the turn. So again, let's go back to our 4 drops real quick. We have the King Cold, the Goku, and the Cooler. All of these cards are targets for your Fu, and when your opponent attacks with any card, the first time they attack, you can immediately trigger the auto. Also, because it is a +1, you can wait. So as soon as your opponent declares an attack, you can decide if I want to auto or not, right? And you just hold it until you think you're ready for defense. 9 times out of 10, honestly, you're just going to play the King Cold right away. You're just going to uptick, play this. Hopefully you've had some means of defense to stop the swing from going into the unison, and everything's golden. Nice and easy. Just do this immediately every time. It's a lot easier. But you do have that flexibility if you need to get a free playoff later in the turns if you think that's more valuable. Alright, next card. The Cumber Z Battle card. This card is way more powerful than people are giving credit. First of all, it's a 1 cost 2Z 15k blocker, and it has a auto. If your leader is a Prison Planet card, when this card is removed from the battle area by an opponent's skill or KO'd, you play one of your unisons with 1 marker on it. So this is, I think, the only way you can play this unison on your opponent's turn. But this card single-handedly allows you to play the green matchup. If this card didn't exist, I would not be playing this deck, quite honestly, because green destroys unisons, and even when Kidku pre-errata was hitting unisons, this card allowed you to play that matchup and have a fighting chance. So with this Cumber Z Battle card, we can play our unison to awaken. Green SGRs it right away. If you can end your turn with this Cumber, you can block the first thing, get a new unison out, and start doing everything your deck wants to do again. Very, very important card. Secondly, it has an auto. At the end of your turn, switch this card to active mode. So you can swing with it, and it'll restand at the end of the turn to block. Awesome. Last, activate main. Limit 1. If your leader's a Prison Planet card and you place 3 Prison Planet cards from your warp back to the drop, choose one of your cards and it gains 5k. So this is a drop fixer as well. And I'm going to go into a very awesome turn 2 playline. But again, all of those things is just way too much value for this one card. The hardest part, honestly, is the 2Z. Because we need 2Z for our super combos. So if you are spending that on this, then you're turning off your super combos. The balance is pretty tight, and your turn 2 plays are quite technical, but trust me, it feels great when you can get a full power turn 2 off. Alright, next we have the last 3 cards. 1 Z Extra, 1 Majin Buu, and 1 Goku Xeno. Now, Goku Xeno obviously is a must-have. It's a 1 mana, warp a card, 25k double strike. And it's a Xeno, so it's a potential Potara piece, right? This card is just very strong. Majin Buu is another 1 mana, 25k. It absorbs a battle card, so removal as well. And it is a blocker, but 9 times out of 10 we're just going to swing with it for a 25k single strike, and sometimes it's more valuable to put someone, let's say, from 3 to 2 life instead of 3 to 1 life. So Single strike 25k and removal. And if your opponent doesn't deal with this, then it's removal every turn for free after that. For 1Z, I guess, but still. Very, very strong. And last is the extra. This is just nice to have, but in all honesty, I haven't played it too often. This is nice to protect yourself against low to the ground decks, because the second activate main, if you have 3Z energy, you can crack this card for free and warp a 5 or less, gain 10k power. So some decks rely on low to the ground bodies, this being one of them. So this is a good tool to protect yourself against decks like that. I think going into the future, there is the new Gohan Z Battle card that has barrier removal. I don't know if that's a worthy inclusion yet, but we'll see when the new set comes out, and I will hopefully find a ratio that I enjoy. Right, that is it for the main deck and Z deck. Let's quickly go into the side. So we're playing 2 Quoits, playing 2 Hunt of the Demon Gods, 1 Bardock Overrealm Floodgate, 2 Cumber's 7 drops, 1 Power Burst, 2 Broly Omen of Evolution, 1 Support of the Dark Empire, 2 Deborah Ritual at Hand, 1 Super Kamehameha, and 1 Golden Cooler. So we'll go really quickly into why these ratios. The Bardock, this is very good into decks that are going to go late game and push for a very big explosive turn. This card is essential into yellow right now because you push them down to 3 life early, and once they hit 4 energy, they're slamming their Gogeta SCR, and we don't have floodgates outside of this card and maybe the 8-drop. But if you don't see 8-drop in time, and you just need to stop a turn to give yourself one more chance at finishing the game, this card is essential. I personally need to get better at playing this card. It is very expensive in black decks. 1 energy and your Overrealm slot is a lot of value you're losing. But again, we have to consider, can I kill you this turn? No. Can you kill me next turn? Maybe. Let's just make sure you can't anymore. If I had sided this in against one of my matchups, I think I might have been able to clutch out the game. So that's a mistake on my end. This card is very valuable. I don't think you need it as more than a 1-of though. So in the side, I think is fine. The Power Burst and the Support of the Dark Empire. These are mainly for Goku Xeno. And unfortunately for me, I didn't see either of these. I saw none of my negates in that matchup. But some decks, you just need an extra negate here and there to survive. So that's why these 2 are in there. There might be some other matchups, hyper aggro decks like Pan essentially can kill you turn 2 if you're not careful. So a worthy inclusion in that deck, and Pan can rip your hard negates out, so you want to keep extra cards in there. And if you just come across a random hyper aggro like 3 Han or something along those lines, always a good inclusion. Also, I need more winners. This is my only one, so please help me. The 1-of Golden Cooler. This was also an inclusion against yellow because my biggest fear, my biggest nemesis is winning the entire game and getting hit by Gogeta's Secret Rare and just not having the defense to outlast a big aggro turn. So against decks that I think are playing that card, or against decks that I know want to go for a later game wide swing turn, Golden Cooler is essential in making sure you get out of those alive. So putting the soft floodgate on your opponent into one of their big turns is incredibly important. The 1-of Super Kamehameha, I talked about this earlier, against decks that have a floodgate, a battle card floodgate that you're worried about, it's important to make sure the second one is in there. So Red if you think they're playing Topos, Zamasu for Oceanus, any other decks that you think might be running battle card floodgates, like green can sometimes play the Bupo. You get the idea. If you think they're gonna floodgate you, you can hit them with this. The only color I think that's not too important to worry about is blue, because Heroic Prospect turns off after turn 4 for your deck. You don't necessarily need to swing with your big bodies to deal damage, so just something to consider, but again, the second copy, always important to have. Alright, we've got our 2 copies of Deborah. I think even with the Cumbersy battle card protecting our Unison, green is still a really tough matchup, and hand control is annoying. So we side these 2 in against green to make sure we can protect our hand, especially because early game we want to be aggressive and our hand size is going to suffer as a result. So having these to make sure we don't gas out too quickly against green when they inevitably solidarity into successor us and we go -3 in hand, -4. This just keeps us back in the game. 2 copies of the Cumber 7. I think honestly this can go down to 1. I don't know if there's too many decks anymore that have barrier threats that we care a lot about. The big one that I was citing this in for was, again, yellow. If they play the barrier 4-drop Sin that negates your card skills on play and is potentially dual blocker or dual attacker, that's just a lot of value they get out of that card. And having an extra way to remove it is important, because again, you can absorb your super combos with this to get the effect off, so it's really strong. However, the same reason we're playing the 4th 8-drop, this is barrier removal as well. And especially if you go first, you're just gonna do your thing turn 2. If they go into the Sin on their own turn 2, you just slam this turn 3. And surprise, their Sin is gone, they're floodgated, they lost all of their value. You kill their Unison, we go another turn, they can't touch yours, blah 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 blah. So this card is less valuable than I wanted it to be. I think we can go down to 1, and we'll talk about the next card in a second, but I think I'm going to replace it for a 3rd Broly. On to the Broly Omen. There are just some decks that need Z energy to get their game going, like Vegito Xeno, even Goku Xeno. You can stun them out of their awakening big turn if you can clutch this out. Especially if you see 2 of them by turn 1, you can just stop their entire game plan. So I think siding the 3rd is going to be important. I did side this against my Goku Xeno matchup, and again, didn't see any of it. But this is definitely worth a 3rd spot in the deck. You just have to be careful because it's not a black card, it's not a Prison Planet card, so it's not searchable and it's not usable anymore outside of Overrealm. But regardless, it's still way too valuable to not put in. 2, Hunt of the Demon God. This is to protect us from Zamasu Mill. We will very likely get to that turn 4, turn 5. So just making sure you're forcing your opponent to spend their energy on Dormant instead of doing it for free. And it just means they will have less resources to mill you out later game. This is a respect slot, and a good Zamasu player will do their best not to play into this, but sometimes you have to, right? Sometimes it's like the only way you survive the turn because you need it to tap out for some other reason. And that's exactly where we want our opponent to be. So this just keeps your green opponents in check for free Dormants. It also has the Spirit Boost effect to negate skills, but honestly, we don't do that very often. If ever. I've never resolved that effect. And last, we have 2 Koitsukais. This is pretty self-explanatory against decks that want to free play on your turn. Like Pan, like Black in general, so anything else that you think is going to be playing cards. Or if you're like Blue, you should just stop them out of all of their defense. It's nice to have. Admittedly, this card isn't as needed in Golden Cooler, because we have so many other ways of dealing with our opponent's board, dealing with aggression, dealing with defense. It's not necessary, but I still think it's worth having in the deck. It just guarantees you push through. Maybe your opponent survives later turns and they're hoping to floodgate you out for a final, final round. This just forces that interaction to be so negative for them that it could either lock them out of the play entirely for fear of losing too much value, or you win by forcing them through this. So in later turns, this is important, but again, it's not super critical, just good to have. All right, so that is the deck profile. And before we sign off tonight, I want to give you guys a quick turn 2 rundown, because it is an incredibly important sequence that I think a lot of people might not understand the nuance. So I'm actually going to give you a whole turn 1 and turn 2. And we're going to pretend, of course, I have the perfect hand. But as I have mentioned before, we can filter to find the cards we need pretty reliably. We want a Trunks and maybe another Trunks just for fun, right? Or a 4-drop. Let's pretend we have a 4-drop. All right. So let's go ahead and do a pretend turn 1, turn 2 play. Go ahead and prepare our life. And everything's in the wrong spot because I'm upside down. So we've got our 8 life here. And we are going to start. We'll pretend we're going first because we want to go first most of the time. So we would charge something, right? Everything in our hand feels pretty valuable. But admittedly, we don't need everything right this second, so the 4-drop's the easiest charge target. We'll charge, pay 1, play the Trunks. You will top 5 for something, ideally a Prison Planet card. And then you'll do Leader Effect to pitch a Prison Planet. You want it to be a Prison Planet because we'll need as many as we can in the early turns. You'll top 5 again, and let's just pretend you grab another Prison Planet. Well, you have to. So you grab one of these guys. You'll pass turn, combo this out to get your Z energy, and maybe take a damage. Perfect. We got another Prison Planet. So we're going to draw for turn. Draw a random card. Look, it's an 8-drop. We will charge this Goku. We are then going to immediately pitch top 5. Grab another 1-drop. That's great. Then we're going to pay our 2 energy and our 1Z into the drop to play the Superfu Unison. Let me get those in the right area for you. Now, the Superfu will come out with 2 markers. You'll top 5 for a Prison Planet card. Let's say this time we're looking for a 4-drop because we have none in our hand. So we'll grab, so say we grab one of these guys, and we'll discard a card from our hand. We'll discard the Trunks. Now we want to swing first, because on the back, on your leader's front side, when you swing, you draw. So we'll attack, draw a card, awaken, untap 1, draw 1, go down to 6. And then here we will need to combo at least 1 card. So we're going to combo this. And Z charge. Next, we're going to overwhelm right away. So you overwhelm 4, you draw a card. You're going to swing, combo anything, Z charge. Now you're going to pay 1 energy and 2 Z to play the Cumber Z battle card. We're going to immediately use his activate main effect, send the 3 prison planets from your warp back to your drop. And you can either give himself or the Unison 5k. In this case, I'll give himself 5. Swing with that. You might want to combo another card so we can start preparing for our Z energy. Swing with Unison. You could potentially combo another card, but now we're getting a little tight in hand size, so in this case I won't combo. And then we can use Leader's Backside effect. We're going to pitch a card, draw 2. Just draw 2 random cards. And then Leader's Backside second ability, warp 2 Prison Planet cards, try to avoid the trunks, and free play your Cumber, give it 5k, or Cooler, sorry, give it 5, and then we'll top 5 for another Prison Planet card. You guys are getting the drift. Yeah, I think we're somewhere around here in hand size. You guys get the idea, though. And if you grabbed a super combo at some point, you might be inclined to swing combo. And if your opponent, say, plays a token negate or a battle card negate, and you think you can swing through it, you can counterplay, burst 2, see another swing out of this. So let's pretend we didn't see counterplay, or we didn't have an opportunity to play counterplay. That is still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 swings on turn 2, potentially putting your opponent down to 3 life immediately. And I did resolve this sequencing several times throughout the day. It is very powerful. It's very, very important to get it off in this specific order. And sometimes your opponent just has no answer. And again, at the end of the turn, this will go to warp, and your Cumber will restand. So now when your opponent swings, we have 4 in drop at the moment. So not quite enough to get a power burst off, but you know, maybe you can block, combo a card off, right, to put it in the drop, and then your Unison, when they swing the next time, you can power burst, uptick, player blocker, do all of the effects, draw a card, top 3, you get the gist, right? And so now you are well protected into your opponent's next turn. You stop 1, 2, 3 attacks with the free negate. If you saw different negates, you could stop more with like a token or something. So yeah, that's how you want to play out your turn 2 if you're going aggressive. If you don't want to do all of this craziness, if you think your swings aren't going to get through, you're worried about getting shut down at the Overrealm, and now you're stuck with no cards in the drop for the Prison Planet effect, you can always, after playing the Unison, just free play your one guy. Don't worry about the Z battle card. Keep your energy up, and save it for Power Burst or Petrification if you think a big card's coming next turn, right? You don't have to go into this hyper-aggressive turn 2 play. It's just the way I prefer to play the deck. And it really forces your opponent on the spot. So I hope this was helpful to everybody. I think this deck, like I said, has so much potential in the meta. It's incredibly aggressive and defensive at the same time. It does everything I want a black deck to do, except maybe play Fearless Fusion, but you know, we get what we can, right? And yeah, I think with the right mastery of your play lines, the right understanding of your opponent's decks, you are more than capable of taking this to Top Cut like I did over the weekend. I hope everyone has success with their decks, and please feel free to reach out and ask questions. I'm happy to help. And let's see how this deck performs in the upcoming meta. Thank you.